I hate intros. Intros to me are so cringy, and every time I have to film an intro, I don't know what to say. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adulting with Angel. I am your host, Angel Mariah, and in this video, I will walk you through the job application process. The first thing I want to talk about today is going to be resume building. I think that your resume is everything, especially when it comes to online job applications. As you know, your resume is the first impression that you make with any recruiter or company, and you want to make sure that your resume is applicable. You want to make sure that your resume is an accurate description of you and what you bring to the table, as you never get a second chance to make a first impression. The number one tip that I've gotten from recruiters as well as mentors in my life is to make sure that the format of your resume is consistent. With that being said, we're going to want to use the same tense. We're going to want to make sure that if we're saying I worked, you want to make sure that you use a past tense for all of your descriptive phrasing throughout your resume as a whole. We want to make sure that either we stick to a consistent formatting when it comes to periods. So we're either going to leave a period at the end of every sentence, or we're not, but we're not going to have periods in some sentences and not periods in others. We really want to keep everything consistent. Another thing that I can't stress enough, and I think should be common knowledge, is grammar. You need to make sure that your grammar is accurate. A really good resource that I have to use when it comes to that is Grammarly. Throw your resume into Grammarly to make sure there's no punctuation errors or grammatical errors that might have a recruiter think that you're incompetent and not want to give you a job. Recruiters see hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes a day, and the last thing you want to affect your candidacy is a spelling error. Okay? Another tip I have is when it comes to formatting your resume, look at LinkedIn and also look up job resumes for this field on Google, just to make sure that you're not missing anything on your resume that you might have forgotten about yourself or that you might not think is relevant. Compare your resume to so many people in your field, cross-check it to people who have the job you want, cross-check it with people who have the job you have currently. Make sure that you have everything that you need to have. I promise it'll help in the long run. The second tip I have for you is to make sure that your resume is legible to a robot. Now that might sound pretty weird, but most all resumes are firstly screened through an AI type of software, which means that a human is normally not the first person to land their eyes on your resume. So when it goes to specific job postings, you want to read through the posting and make sure that any of the required or preferred qualifications are listed in your resume. This is a tip called search engine optimization. If you're interested in learning more about it, I definitely recommend you to look it up. But that's my tip for you. Make sure that the words in the job description find their way into your resume. And the final tip I have for you when it goes to building your resume before applying for jobs is to go ahead and make a cover letter. Although I think they're the most irrelevant things of all time and don't do any justice and just waste our time, just go ahead and draft one up. If you do it in the beginning, it'll save you time in the long run for those companies that want you to put a cover letter for whatever reason it is that floats their boat. The biggest tip I have for you when it comes to formatting your resume is to understand that the resume that you format in the beginning is not applicable to every job that you apply for. I know we wish it was, but it just doesn't work that way. This is the number one reason why I do not recommend having your resume be built out for you by someone. Make your own resume, try it out a couple places, see what your feedback is, and make the modifications along the way. The next thing I want to provide for you is going to be a rapid fire of the do's and don'ts for resume building. I think this is important just to let you know everything that I have on my mind so I don't skip anything. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. You're gonna wanna make sure that you add the dates to any role that you've had. This will make it easier for you to not forget, but also for anyone in HR who is cross-checking your resume. Always put the dates you worked. I just put month, year through month, year, makes it easier for everyone, and it gives kind of like a timeline flow to your resume. For those of my college grads, we want to make sure that we list any relevant volunteer experience or leadership experience that you gained in college. If you don't have any job experience, do not underestimate your sorority experience, whatever clubs you're in, and the roles that you held in those areas. For my recent graduates, you're going to want to make sure that you list all of your relevant courses from college and make sure you can speak on them when brought up in an interview. You want to say, I took Statistics 101, I'm applying for a data analyst role, this is how it's relevant. Stick to consistent formatting, make sure you use the same font, make sure all your text is the same size and your punctuation is similar throughout your entire resume. I've said it once, I'll say it again, format is everything. Do make sure that any certificate or training, coursework that's mentioned in the job description, if you have it, make sure to list it on your resume. This will make your robot happy and push your resume through to some human eyes. As a recent college graduate, any projects that you have led, assisted, or worked on in college, make sure to add them to your resume. This shows your leadership capabilities and what projects that you've worked on that may be similar to the job that you're going into. If you are looking to switch fields, if you're looking to get your first job, relevant experience is key. Project management is applicable across any career field, as well as leadership and things along that sort. You're going to want to quantify as much as possible. So instead of saying I recruited volunteers, say I recruited 60 volunteers in a 2-month frame. You want to show what you're able to do when it comes to numbers. This is something that might be controversial, but I stand by this. You don't have to. Use common language. A lot of times recruiters are not technical recruiters, they're just everyday people. If you work in a very specific technical field, try to dumb down your resume to be as elementary as possible in the explanation, so that way anyone who reads your resume will understand what you're saying. Especially for my people who are like engineers, 9 times out of 10, the people who are looking over your resume are not. So use language that they will understand. Be prepared to elaborate on anything that you put on your resume in the interview. This is something that gets a lot of people caught up, and it's something that's been a big conversation on TikTok recently. People lie on their resume, and then when it gets brought up in the interview, people are like, If you're gonna lie, make sure you have the receipts to back it up, okay? Know what you're talking about. The last tip I have, this is the most applicable to my recent graduate or current students. Anything that you have done is relevant work experience. It just depends how you market yourself. If you don't have any job experience by the time you graduate college, I literally don't even understand how you went through college. But in the case that you did, make sure that anything that you've done, projects you've led, internship experiences that you've participated in, list those on your resume. These are things that you want in the beginning if you are specifically applying for entry-level jobs. If not, you're gonna wanna watch out. And that leads us right into the don'ts of the resume application process. So these are all the don'ts for your resume. Please take note. If you haven't taken notes of the do's, you wanna remember what you don't wanna do. Although we're pushing diversity, inclusion, unconscious bias is real, and adding your photo to your resume might show some bias that you didn't even know about to the recruiter to decline your resume. Unless you're working in a field such as modeling or acting, or a field where they specifically ask you what you look like, it's probably just gonna hurt your chances. And I just have always found it to be unprofessional. Now, you know me, I love a good photo op. I love to show off a good look. Take your best picture and put it on your LinkedIn profile and keep it off of your resume. If you are looking for a brand new job that's entry level, targeting new grads, absolutely put your graduation year on your resume. If not, there's no need for it to be there. The only thing that having your graduation year on your resume does is give you an age bias. I have experienced this in my career field. I will get to interview and people say, oh, you're so young, or they don't say that, but like, obviously because you legally can't say that, but you can tell when people are like judging you for your age. I've experienced that a lot because of how successful I am for my age. You do not want to put yourself in that boat, I promise you. Leave it off. If you have been out of college for 3, 4, 5 years, leave it off your resume. We don't need that on there. And also, while you're at it, go ahead and take it down off your LinkedIn. That's just my opinion. Do with that information as you must. You don't have to follow it, but it's worked for me. You are gonna wanna put the city that you want the job in on your resume. So the reason I do this is if you're applying for jobs in Washington State and you live in Mississippi and you have a Mississippi address on your resume, it just doesn't make sense and it makes you a less attractive candidate. I'm not saying to lie, and this is something that you could talk about in your interview process is, oh, we're looking to relocate to this area, so I'm applying for jobs, but you want to eliminate any type of bias that can take you out of the running before you're even in it. An example of this was when I applied for my job in Denver. It was very clear on my resume that I did not live there based on where my current job experience was in Florida, but I still put Denver on my resume so that way they were like, oh, she's in Colorado, and then I talked to them about how I would be interested in moving, and they paid my relocation. Relocation is, we want relocation. The last thing I want to say is going to be lying. There's a big difference between stretching the truth and lying. Do not lie in your resume, get to the interview, and just be incompetent. Lying, it's just a bad look, especially if you're trying to land your dream job. The last thing you want to do is get caught in a lie. So be mindful of that, and I mean, do what you want to do, but I wouldn't do it. As we come to the end of this episode, I want to thank you again for your endless support to me and my passion project. Again, this is all my personal advice and experience that has worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, well, do better. As always, I appreciate any feedback and support and questions. Anything that you have for me, drop it in the description box below. If you have any personal questions that you're scared to leave in the description box, do not hesitate to shoot me a DM on Instagram or click the link in my description box to my Google form. Leave any kind of questions you got. Be anonymous. It's okay. I can bear it. If you have the means and you can, I would definitely appreciate any donations to Make-A-Wish Foundation in the honor of my late friend Nyla. That would be the biggest way to support me because I'm doing this for y'all. If y'all could do that for me, it's a little exchange of goods. We're on the same page. Thanks for watching this video. I will see you again next Sunday with another one, and stay safe. Have a great week and good luck.